My man Wes. Say what's up to the people, Wes.
How's it going, everybody? Hope you're ready to hear about some Powers of 10.
That's right. OTB, aka Outside the Bleed, is back. We've been waiting for this day. 2 books culminating into 1 story, wasting no time. We're jumping right into Powers of 10, number 6. Wes, we're going straight in, man. The cover was chilling enough to see, but we go past the cover. We go past the first quote. The quote, which I'll read because it's good to start off with the quotes. Straight up. And now we build Professor X. And then we jump into it. So we've seen a scene that we've seen before. Why don't you tell me a little bit about what you saw within that first scene?
Well, it's just a recap of Moira and Charles meeting on the park bench at the fair, where she finally delivers him the full scope of her previous lifetimes and the reality of everything that she knows. But this time we get a little bit more information. We finally get the answer to the 3 big mysteries that were remaining. What's Moira's 6th life? What is up with the failing story? And what the heck is up with Charles? He answers it all right here in the 6th issue of Powers of 10. It is great.
Absolutely. Something that jumped out to me is because obviously the first part was kind of edited. Not everything from Powers of X or Powers of 10 number 1 was in this part. But what they did keep, and I thought this was significant, was the part about the magician, which was Rasputin kind of walking through the wall, the tower, which was the monolith for Nimrod, and then ultimately, as well as Cardinal, the devil. So it's funny how those things still got highlighted. But of course, we go through the part where he receives the vision again. And then from there, we immediately jump over into X to the first power, which is X-Men year 1. Wait, X to the third power, X-Men year 1000. Wow.
So the Garden of Eden isn't a tranquil place for humanity. It's a zoo. Yes. And it's the home of the last mutants on Earth. Who would have thought it?
Who would have thought? And see, and that's what I was saying. That's why when I read Powers, I said our house was awesome and everybody was raving about it. But then Powers came along and I was like, oh no, this is my book right here. This is the one. And especially when we got to the end of it and it looked like an X-Men movie, James Marsden Cyclops and a Famke Janssen, type Jean Grey minus the red hair in the Garden of Eden, being covered by leaves and stuff like that. And I was like, this is my book. I love where this is going. So, but sure enough, here we are. We're going through it. It's got, I guess we call the person the librarian. The librarian goes, and finally, I think we see one of the places that we didn't get to see yet on the map. This is the Danger Island. What the training place, or what is supposed to be Danger Room. Now I know it's obviously where they're being held, but I think that went from where they got trained to their holding tank on Krakoa, because now I'm seeing more and more this whole Asteroid K thing is Asteroid Krakoa. And I didn't realize that before. So being that it's Krakoa, there they are on Danger Island, or the danger section of Asteroid Krakoa. And he's going and he's talking to some people. And finally we see Logan walk out after he dispatches everybody that tries to jump at him. I was surprised by that, Wes. Tell me, what were your thoughts when you saw Logan walk out of there?
Well, it's pretty surprising. So we thought all along that Moira is in this story, but we thought she was either the librarian or the elder. I think most people thought she was the librarian. Why else would we be here if she's not going to learn something so she could go back to the past? And that's not what's going on at all. He's got Logan and Moira in his wildlife reserve, and he's been monitoring them. And he's like, oh, it's neat that you're able to keep her alive all this time by doing all these blood transfusions because you have the same blood type. But Logan has a great opening exchange with him. Where was it? He says, "You understand it though, right? They just want to be free, not locked up in this zoo." And the rebuttal is just heartbreaking. It's terrible. You finally see the state of mutants on this earth. How could anyone want something they don't even know exists? Nobody, no mutant in this habitat even knows what it was like to be free, except for Logan and Moira. Oh,
and
terrible.
Then Moira, and then here comes Moira, and we're like, oh snap! Because that's what threw me. We had saw Moira before, but when we saw Moira before, it was X to the second power, year 100. That's when Logan did what he does, killed her. She went back with the information, the crystal that they put in her chest.
In
went
the
back
ninth lifetime,
right? but year 1000, the whole time was the 6th lifetime. So I got to stop and give Wes some props for that. He pointed out that there was no 6th a long time ago, and sure enough, it ended up being significant.
Absolutely, yeah. So we had theorized, have we even seen the 6th lifetime? And I think I know I said yes, we have seen it. We just haven't been told yet, but we've seen at least scenes, maybe jumping in, garbled in. It turns out the Phalanx story is all the 6th lifetime, and it's very important to Moira. It changes her as a person, and it basically makes her go insane, because we know in the 7th lifetime she goes and kills Bolivar Trask's family. In her 8th lifetime, she joins up with the House of N and tries to defeat humans going the Magneto route. And in the 9th lifetime, she joins up with Apocalypse, and that's how they ended up discovering the origins of Nimrod. And she came back for that, because we know she came up with a plan with Apocalypse in that lifetime. So this moment right here changes everything about Moira and her outlook on the future and what she has to do to save mutants.
Absolutely. And it's a pretty, well, I mean, what could radicalize a Charles Xavier, but the person that he has loved, you know, maybe the most consistently, probably throughout the continuity, the person that he's loved that much, radicalizing him. So I thought it was great. I thought it was spot on. The last part I'll highlight about this scene before we move on is obviously the intentions and what's to come with the Phalanx comes back into play. Now, of course, when the Phalanx showed up in this timeline, that just got me even more excited, because I felt like if the Phalanx are coming as big as they're making them to be, with all these hive minds and this, Dominion, this Dominion thing and the wormholes, I said it has to be something that's going to ultimately return them back to the beginning. And ultimately, that's what it's saying. The librarian is telling them, hey, it's happening tomorrow. We are going to be ascended, and we're going to be taken up into the Phalanx. All of it. And then Logan's like, doesn't that mean we're all going to be dead? And he said, yeah, everybody except for y'all. I'm going to ship you guys off the earth. And then they're like, well, why did you ship us off the earth if ultimately you want to be absorbed into them? And he's like, us being absorbed will put us in a godlike state. We will be a part of God, essentially, as the Phalanx goes from that, then goes into the middle of the wormhole to become, one full singular hive of knowledge with the Dominion, to be one single full, entity of knowledge and whatever. And they're like, well, if you're going to be that, why does it even matter? And he said, basically, because I'm curious that if you do leave, and if you are able to go back and you are able to make a change, will the change rival what I will become, what we will become?
You're missing a big part before that happens. He says, I'm sending you off world, because if she dies, everything will be reset and we won't know this information anymore.
Right.
But once we ascend with this information in the Phalanx, the Dominion, because we go into the Phalanx and the Phalanx takes the information to the Dominion transcends space and time. Right. Once they have that information, it'll never be forgotten. They will always know that Moira on Earth has the ability to reset timelines, and they will come back and they will kill you, because they don't want anyone with the power you have existing. And they'll always know it, because the way the Dominion works, it transcends time. It's like almost all encompassing, because it's godlike power. And so you guys are going to live, because if she dies, everything resets and this won't happen. But then you're right. The librarian has a little change of heart. I called it the reverse Cypher moment from the Matrix. Remember when Cypher's at the table and he goes, I know this steak isn't real, but I love it because it tastes delicious. Well, the librarian says, I know that I'm going to be uploaded into the Phalanx and ascended, and we're going to be part of a godlike power, but will my existence even be real at that moment? I don't. And he's kind of second guessing, what's going to happen. And then he says, so, if I sent you back, what would you do to stop this anyway? Oh, it doesn't turn out well. She doesn't even realize who the enemy is. No.
And that, unfortunately, is a big part of the problem. And one last thing about that part is, it was interesting as the librarian was talking specifically about that part. There was a purple flower, a Krakoan plant that he had put out, and it had, started to kind of come apart, and then ultimately come down to only the petals and the root that was needed. And it was funny, he pushed it out, but we don't see it after that. We don't see it. So to me, that was another thing that might be gifted. Maybe they took that with them as he sends them off planet. But that's what he was saying. The part of me that knows that we need to evolve, I'm a human. And I think that is Charles Xavier, like the librarian. I think he ended up being part of the evolution and then the machine evolution. I think he ended up getting wrapped up into it. But he's saying, I want to know. You know, I know I'm about to go be part of God, but the selfish part of me past what I'm going to absorb into wants to know. And that's why he's sending them off in a way so we can find out. But yeah, I think that's the weird thing is like now I'm looking at it like Charles might have radicalized her to radicalize Charles because that he's the one who's saying like, this is how big it is. We're going to go and turn into something and then life as we know it will be over and we will ascend. So unless we want this to continue, you have to go back and find a way. And I want to know which way you find.
Yeah, it's really interesting, you know, because he's talking about it. He's like, you know, this whole time you thought machines were the enemy. He's like, no. The machines just bought us time. The true enemy is we know that the natural evolution on Earth is for mutants to ascend to the dominant species. But humans are bypassing nature using technology, and it's we've been talking about it from the very beginning. They're not an unnatural evolutionary state. So every time that the humans were able to take another leap using genetic experimentation, genetic enhancements, they're able to enhance their machines, which enables another leap for the human evolution. And eventually they reach this non-human or this post-human state that we see the librarian and the elder in. And it's just amazing because she never thought about it. That they thought the whole time it's the machines. The machines are the downfall of mutants. It's not the machines. It's because humans actually evolve faster than mutants and end up leaping them because they've been keeping them satiated and deal with these machines. And we're going to evolve ourselves. We're not going to be humans anymore. We're going to be supermen.
Yeah, he literally
crazy
Superman. It was, that's why I love this timeline so much. Just all the implications and what it could mean looking at the future. But then ultimately we see that as the librarian is still talking, Logan does what he does. Right through Homeboy, and then Homeboy drops. You know, Logan pulls his claw out of the tree and turns. And
so, what was your interpretation of this? Because mine is that he let him kill him. Because the very opening scene, he walks into the reserve. A wild mutant comes flashing at him. He goes, right. Your brain isn't fast enough to attack me. I've already got defense mechanisms built in. You would have to do this and this and this to even get close to me. Right. And then he kind of put him away. So technically, he shouldn't be able to be touched. And we know he was having second thoughts. Like, is this ascension even a real state of being? Am I even going to exist anymore? You know, being part of this hive mind, this collective. Do you think he let him kill him? I'm on the team that he did let him kill him.
I literally didn't think about the consequences of either way until right now. And now that you mention it, absolutely. Because like you said, he dispatched the other ones and I didn't go into detail, but he was like, I can perceive what you're going to do far faster than the thought coming to you and then you being able to actualize it. So like, this is nothing. And that's when he told him like, turn off the simulators. I'm here, you know, whoop, whoop, whoop. So yeah, I think he did. And then plus not only the other thing you said, he started to have second thoughts and you said he wants to see. Well, remember, it's just his consciousness and his information. So all of his consciousness and his information, even though his body's not living anymore, that's still going to go into the phalanx, which is going to go into the Dominion. So he's still going to be able to observe if they actually make it happen or not. And I think he needed Logan to do what Logan does, because right after that, you know, Logan and Moira have a little thing, and she's like, all right, send me on my way. And he's like, all right, close your eyes, Moira. And she says, no, my eyes are open. And they're never going, and they're going to stay that way. Just make it quick. And he says, don't worry, darling. This is what I do.
It's a beautiful scene. It's a beautiful scene. But I think there's one other thing that you might have missed on this. So prior to this, I thought once one of these timelines started and Moira died and she reset to the next lifetime, I thought that existence kept going on forever. Mm-hmm. So if that were the case, then the Phalanx would already know about this because they already had the information about Moira. it's obvious that once her lifetime restarts, everything restarts. Everyone starts out at a zero-sum game, except for Moira, who has the previous knowledge that she had. Otherwise, they would be assimilated into the Phalanx. They would know about Moira. So I think that pretty much answers that question, that these timelines don't go on forever, that as soon as she dies, everything resets to the beginning, except for, and the only thing changed is Moira.
Yeah, I mean, that's the only way that it can make sense in my mind. And I'll be honest with you, like once we start to go to the like periphery of some of these higher concepts, I'm not, I used to be like this. I'm not one of the person that tries to like sort them out fully. I'm kind of like, good idea, creativity, sweet. And then I just kind of dive back into the storyline, but I still do have an appreciation for like how exactly it operates and it works and stuff like that. So that's dope to me. My biggest thing, again, I guess I'm more of a heart person these days, and maybe I should be feeling critical instead of thinking critical. Wes is going to kick me off the show now. Anyway, the biggest part that I took away is the fact that he said, this is what I do, because it's a callback to Lin Wein with him coming up with that phrase for Logan, I'm the best at what I do. So I was looking more back at the continuity and Hickman paying that some respect.
Oh, Hickman's paid so much respect to the continuity. That's probably been the best part of the whole story, is he's always constantly paying homage. And I like the fact that it would have been very easy for him to take shortcuts and be like, this run sucked, so I'm going to pretend like it never existed. And this sucked, and I'm just going to cut that out. Instead, he's embraced it all. He's elevated all the material and said, you know what, if you had a bad idea, I'm going to take your bad idea, I'm going to incorporate it in my story and make it a great idea.
You know what? It's so funny that this and Doomsday Clock are, I mean, even though they shouldn't be coming out at the same time, Doomsday Clock should have finished. But the fact that those two are still coming out around the same time is funny, because that's what Jeff Johns was doing. He was cleaning up DC continuity and pulling in the Watchmen. And that's what Hickman's doing. He's cleaning up everybody's mess over the last 10 years from X-Men continuity. And I have never seen a mess cleaned up in such a fantastic way. It's crazy. Anyway, so we go from that into them talking about the branching humanity. It's a graphic. I'm not going to spend a bunch of time on it. We'll move past, but just know that's where Wes was talking about how in depth they get on Homo superior, which is humans with the X gene, and then Homo sapiens, which is obviously humans. And then they showed how it branched out to Homo novissima, which was basically humanity evolved with all of the advancements that that their technology would make, and then they would make, and then their technology. And notice something, it does talk about into the end state. So it does talk about everybody's cap. It talks about where people with the mutant X gene gets capped, talks about where humans get capped, and it talks about Homo novicia, where they can get capped as well. So that's that part. That part's over. We flash right back into X to the 0, X to the first hour, year 1. And then it goes from Xavier being like, to like, like his brain, like, did Moira give him like the first Wi-Fi aneurysm, Wes? Tell me a little bit more.
She definitely gave an aneurysm. Like once he saw the full extent of the current path that he was trying to take the X-Men, and how miserably it fails every time. They never win when they try to coexist with humanity. They never win when they try to embrace humans and say, love us like we love you. It never works. And Charles finally is seeing, well, probably not the first time, but in this time he's seeing the errors of his ways. The one thing he's always wanted is virtually unachievable. And it always ends in a nightmare. And it basically breaks his mind right there.
Right there on the spot. So she gives him the aneurysm first. You see, like, and then it's almost like after that, she lobotomizes him next and just takes out a little bit of the frontal lobe. She pretty much tells him, like Wes says, we always lose. Like every time, we always lose. And I know you love them, and I know you want them to love us, and you do everything you can. But honey, it's just not enough. Like she just breaks it to him, like, honey, baby, it ain't enough. And she, she kisses him. He's trying to ask questions, maybe I can tweak who I have as leaders, and maybe I can put different people as captains. And she just kisses him like, shut up. It just can't happen like that. It's got to happen like this now. And he gets on board.
And then there's some really interesting journal entries. And what these journal entries, for one thing that they definitely do is they say this is the 10th lifetime. If you look at moments in the journal entries that they say happen, it all matches up perfectly with the 10th lifetime that's been explained out. So we definitely know which lifetime we're in. But it also explains that she's saying, hey, Charles isn't changing yet. He's still loving humanity. It's terrible that he's doing this. Then it's, okay, I'm breaking him now. His mind's starting to break. But I think if he breaks too much, that he might unleash here's the line. My concern, my paramount fear is that if I fracture his psyche and eventually unleash something unexpected on the world, which I think might be a precursor of things to come. And then, there's some other tidbits on her plans and things that haven't gone her way. And it's really interesting. I really like this. It's hallmark Jonathan Hickman storytelling. If you read his other works like Black Monday Murders, there's journal entries, there's blacked out journal entries where maybe you get one line and yeah, exactly. That's straight from Black Monday Murders, and it's classic Hickman storytelling. You want to know what these 2 paragraphs that have been redacted are, and you get like a little piece of a sentence on that last one. Yeah, you can make out the word bad. Something bad. I can't remember.
And see, even stuff like that, like he gets into your mind, the conspiracy theories, the wait, what is that thing? He does that. He digitally had them put in a printing error. This is a PDF file. There's nothing to print. He used graphic design to put in a print error, so on. Because if you look, nowhere else in there do you see those little things. It's just on that last little section where it says I'm bad for them. And there's another entry in there that is very similar that says the same thing later, except you can see it spelled out. Now, here's the thing on the redacted one, Wes, why do you think it's redacted? I'm just curious why I don't know. I haven't read.
I'll be completely honest, I hadn't thought about it.
Okay, I'm glad you said that. The reason why I think it's redacted is because I believe it exposes the fact that she tweaked one of Charles Xavier's backups.
I would absolutely buy that. I think there's more than, yes, we know Charles is crazy now. It's fully spelled out, these journal entries. The prior panels like spelled out Charles is crazy. He lost his mind. He's a broken man now. But that isn't the whole story. There's more to it. And there's a couple other hints later on that we'll get to that where I think Moira is way more devilish than I ever anticipated. She might actually be the big bad in the whole comic series.
I'm going to go as far as to say now, I mean, I was going to wait to the end, but I believe that she is the big bad. And I do believe that she is the thing that they will be fighting. Ultimately, like the big bad, like Jonathan Hickman planting seeds, and like at the end of his run, years later, it's going to come back to her, and it is her that they're going to have to battle. And I just hope she doesn't bring a Dominion with her.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
But we get past that part and we come to it says yesterday in Krakoa, Moira's no space. So we're back in there. We got Charles and her coming, Charles and Magnus, Eric Lancher coming in and saying that they brought her some tea. She's basically like, look, the 2 places that get out of here lead to one of the best places to eat in the world and something else. So I don't need you to bring me tea. And of course we see it's formality. So they get past those. Magneto creates some, I thought that part was cool. I know it was just like in the panel, but how he just took those odd metal balls and just made teacups out of them was so dope. So he makes the tea and, she's saying, they're reporting saying, hey, the first meeting of the council went well. This is what we got so far. There's still 1 seat open.
Come on in. This is before that. This is before the first meeting of the council. They're just announcing the council members.
Oh, the council members. Okay.
Yes. And that there's 1 extra seat for the Red King, for the Hellfire Club. And they're kind of talking about how it's organized.
Okay. So they're talking about, right. And then that's when they talk about how the 1 seat is empty and, she'll fill it when she wants to and whatnot. They talk about who
Not
else
that it really matters. Like, I didn't understand why this needed to be before the members, before the first meeting in the first judgment. But that's just the way that the timing is.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's the fact that there's some dissent, right? Because that's what happens later in the scene. They sit down and they say, like, part of bringing, I forgot who it was that they needed to bring in. It was that she wants Destiny to come in with her. And then this is where things, I very obviously, where separation begins between
things
Charles.
Go south.
Yep. Charles and Magneto are on one side, Moira's on another side, because she's like, you can't do that. She can't come here. And Charles just like, we know. And he's just sipping tea, and she's like, no, she really can't come here. He's like, oh, we know. I like that scene.
No precogs on the island.
Nope.
No one that can see the future. And the reason is because they can see that we always lose, and then everyone will expose us for failures. I don't think that's what it is. I think there's more to this. You want to hear my weird theory?
What do you think I'm going to say? No? Yeah, I want to hear. We all
right. So we know in the 9th lifetime that Moira and Apocalypse were in cahoots together, and Apocalypse is the one that came up with the idea on how they were going to discover the origins of Nimrod and send her back. I think there's more to that plan than they let on, and I think she's been sent back to execute another plan for Apocalypse, and they might be using Charles and Magneto here to execute another portion of their plan, because you can see she's getting mad when they're starting to do things that she doesn't want them to do. She already talked about it earlier. She did not want them to meet with Mr. Sinister. She definitely didn't want him to recruit him, and she was very shocked to learn that he had already created Chimera decades before that she ever expected him to. So they're changing the plan a little bit. I think it's pissing her off.
And just to point out to everybody, I like where Wes is going with this, because in the journal entries, there was 3 people that got talked about, like 3 entries, like for people specifically: Xavier, Magneto, and Apocalypse. So there it is right there.
And there's some other things there, but yeah, I think maybe she and Apocalypse are in cahoots, and they might be playing Charles and Eric like a fiddle, chess pieces. Oh, yeah. Playing them like a marionette.
I like to say like a harpsichord, but that's just me.
Playing them like a harpsichord.
I played this stinking city like a harp from hell.
Absolutely.
So little Batman Returns reference there, but ultimately, Charles lets her know, like, hey, we know they can't come. We're gonna keep saying tomorrow. We're gonna keep deferring it.
Keep pushing it off.
Right, but eventually it's gonna come to that. And hey, besides, like, everybody's given everything for this. Don't they deserve to know the truth, just like we deserve to know the truth? Ooh, she didn't like that. And then pretty much they start to walk out, and what they walk into is into the last scene of House of X. Where, of course, there's the fireworks going off, all of that stuff.
The indoor celebration.
Right, exactly. and everybody's, got the fireworks, everything going off. But again, interesting, because Wes just said it. We see Apocalypse back there sitting separate from Charles and Magneto. And we see them up there basically talking to each other like, yeah, it's time to employ our plan. Okay.
So this is interesting. So this is a new monologue of the same pages from the last comic. So this comic and House of X number 6, they both end in the very same spot.
They tie up.
Pretty cool, which I like it. I like that idea. So at the beginning of the monologue, they're saying, "Thank you, Moira. This is all because of you. We couldn't be here if it wasn't for you. But now it's time for Eric and I to take over, and you to just sit in the background, because we're going to execute the plan." And they're kind of like putting baby in a corner. And it's interesting. Now that you've gotten us here, the big boys are going to take over, and we're going to save Mutantkind, and we're going to save mutants from humanity.
And what's so funny? What's so funny is I read this on digital, so I didn't have the luxury of like closing the book. But if you close the book, again, here goes Jonathan Hickman. What I believe what the cover of the book is what this is going to be leading to, because at the cover of the book was Moira with all the X-Men around her on the ground looking beat up or dead.
I'm not sure if it's a harbinger of things to come, or maybe just the idea that all the mutants are dead at the very beginning of the story, but Moira is still alive. Could be one or the other. Absolutely.
We'll see. There's a lot of story left, and that's why I kind of shifted my expectations after reading House of X, I was like, you know, some big crazy woo, and then it kind of things started coming into context more, and I'm like, the beginning can't have such a crazy big end because it's the beginning, you know, but it will have an end that is going to lead over into all the other books, like I said, and ultimately that's what it was. We're left on, we know everybody's position. We know that Magneto and Charles, it seems like, are the most solid that they've been since before they split off into their own two factions. So they're unified. All the mutants are coming to the island, all except for Namor. I still think that's going to play an interesting piece. And Apocalypse is, you know, keep your friends close and your enemies closer. He is right there where Charles and Magneto think that they can keep an eye on him. But this man has gone through timelines and transcends, you know, time a little bit. I don't think that they can control him as good as they think they can. And I don't think we fully know just how powerful Moira is yet. But the dawn of Moira,
there's also the wild card. What is Apocalypse's connection with Krakoa? We know when he arrived on the island, he was like, birds started flying around him. There was obviously a recognition. It felt like a thank you, like a welcome home type of thing. I think Apocalypse has a connection to that island that's much deeper than anyone realizes. And what I really liked is, because I remember when I put down House of X number 6, I was like, this feels like the end of the story. Mm-hmm. Like, what is Powers of 10 number 6? Because this feels like a definitive ending. The nation of Krakoa is here, sovereignty, judgment has been laid, and everyone's celebrating the new dawn ahead, Dawn X. But Powers of 10 number 6, exact same ending. It's in the same spot. It just filled in those 3 big blanks. What's wrong with Charles? What's that 6th life that we've all been, or that we haven't heard mentioned? And what does this Phalanx story all mean? Well, the Phalanx story is the 6th life, and the 6th life broke Charles's mind. It was all fundamental to the story. And Hickman, of course, lays it out at the very end of the story, just so you have to go back and read everything one more time.
Which I will be doing on my stream. I will be reading through the entire series. So if you guys aren't following me on Twitch, please make sure that you do and turn your notifications on so you can see me do a ridiculous feat like read all these books all the way through. Wes, closing thoughts. This is we've wrapped up House, we've wrapped up Powers. We're next week. X-Men number 1, here it is. Like, what are your kind of closing thoughts? And I know we're going to have a show, obviously, on Sunday, where we're going to have like the opus of all our closing thoughts. But just for the people right now, close us out.
All right. So what I would say is this is the most important X-Men story of the past 10 years. It moves ahead of everything else. This is important. It's made X-Men feel special again. It's made X-Men feel important again. It's brought readers back in who have been screwed over and burnt too many times. They believe in Hickman. They believe in the direction, and they're ready for where Hickman's going to take them. And number 2, I don't only think this is the most important X-Men title of the last 10 years. I think this is one of the most important comic stories for mainstream comics of the last 10 years. I think this is going to be a new dawn for Marvel. I think Marvel is going to realize that if you want to, it takes money to make money. If you want to make X-Men feel important, you have to go hire the very best writers and put them on it. I think Hickman has proven that very effectively. If you want people to go read Avengers and think that they're feeling an important comic book, that they're reading an important story, you have to go pay money, put the very best writer that you can put on it. You have to go find the right artist for that comic book. Rick Remender, please, Rick Remender on Avengers. Let's see it happen. But I think Marvel is going to learn that going cheap and cutting corners and putting green writers on important characters and important properties like X-Men, Spider-Man, Avengers, Iron Man, Captain America. Get Mark Waid off of these characters. Get Dan Slott out of there. Get Ta-Nehisi Coates out of there. Let's bring in the best comic book writers, because those guys aren't the best comic book writers anymore. And I think Marvel is going to learn their lesson, and I'll be shocked if in 12 months we haven't seen a huge change at the top of Marvel. I don't think the stuff at the bottom is going to change, because who cares about Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur? No one cares about Wasp, and no one cares about the Champions because they're not important. But I think these important flagship characters these flagship titles. We've seen it with Immortal Hulk. Now we've seen it with X-Men. I think you're going to see Avengers get a new change. Hopefully Iron Man soon. And I think we're even going to get an upgrade on Nick Spencer's Spider-Man, who's actually done a good job.
I hear you, man. I'm excited that everybody's passionate. Miracles happen every day. I think it was a miracle the day that after pissing them off, they decided to back up the Brinks truck and bring Jonathan Hickman back to Marvel. I'm above everything. Everybody's going to have their own feelings on it, and that's what we're here to talk about. We're here to respect each other's opinion, how everybody thinks, and share the conversation. But the fact that comic book stores are selling comic books again, the fact that people are excited week to week to read a comic book again, and such a big comic book is impressive to me. The mutants needed their power back because no mutants, no X-Men. They're only X-Men because they have the X gene in them. They wouldn't be mutants. They wouldn't be the X-Men without it. So he had to return mutants back to power, and he has. And along with that, he's shifting the tide. And just the fact that how he rewards all of the continuity and then kind of ties it up in a little bow like this, I think is special. And for right now, mutants are in a place that they've never been. They're unified. When we got introduced to them, they weren't even all on the same page, and it became a story of, well, some are over here, some are that. For right now, they're all on the same page, but we know the next book that we grab, we're going to see that page is going to start to shift and the real story begins. So everybody, thank you for tuning in. We appreciate you. Outside the Bleed, we'll continue. Make sure you tune in on Sunday for you can see the panel of everybody. Wes, do we have an idea who's going to be on the panel?
Yes, Doc will be there. Chase from Gateway into Comics and Perch are all confirmed to be on the panel for the third edition of the Adamantium Hour.
The Adamantium Hour, yo. So if you want to get your fix, if you want to feel the steel, make sure you guys tune in. But other than that, keep tuning into Thinking Critical, and we appreciate you guys. We'll see you next time.
All right, thank you, everybody. Salamat po.
I'm out.
And I'm out.